Enjoy all episodes of the RCWR Show on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, Spreaker, and iHeartRadio.
Catch the RCWR Show with Lee Sanders every Tuesday night, 10 p.m. Eastern, only on Spreaker.com. Covering all things WWE, TNA, Ring of Honor, Global Force Wrestling, Paragon Pro Wrestling, any and all things wrestling and beyond, as well as an occasional appearance by some kick-ass awesome guests. 10 p.m. Eastern, only on Spreaker.com. Hey, if you can't catch our shows live, you can scoop it up on demand on great platforms such as Spreaker, iTunes, Mixlr, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, and on YouTube. Just use the keywords, The RCWR Show. Tonight's edition of The RCWR Show with Lee Sanders is brought to you by FreeStream. Everybody, how would you like to cut your cable or satellite TV bill down to zero? Well, you can with FreeStream. Why FreeStream? FreeStream is capable of streaming entertainment from around the world, including live TV, music, gaming, and the latest movies, you name it. FreeStream offers over 100,000 titles of movies for you to stream anytime you want, day or night. That's 24/7. Current movies can stream right from your box in HD quality at the highest resolution that's available. Hey, are you a sports fan? Watch any sports event live from anywhere in the world in the highest quality, streamed live right to your television. If you miss any live programs or new episodes, you can stream them from start to finish with FreeStream at your convenience. There's over 1,000 TV channels, everything from local to premium channels, all available through FreeStream. And the best part, folks, the best part about FreeStream, it's legal to stream programming/content. It's only illegal to download or change the content. So with that in mind, are you ready to cut your cable or satellite bill to zero? Then head on over to www.cutyourcable.biz. That's www.cutyourcable.biz. www.cutyourcable.biz.
Warning, the RCWR Show with Lee Sanders is intended for a mature audience only. The following is an Infinity One Productions presentation, keeping it honest, insightful, and interactive. Covering the latest in wrestling, entertainment, and beyond. Since 2011, you're listening to the RCWR Show. Now, your host, live from the nation's capital in Washington, D.C., Lee Sanders.
Oh yeah, what is going on, boys and girls? It's the one and only Black Avenger, aka the Black Azrael, Lee Sanders. You are checking out a all-new Sunday night edition of the RCWR Show, coming at you for this May 22nd, 2016, as we are talking WWE Extreme Rules 2016 Fallout. Want to hear from you guys for the next little bit that I'm going to be on here. Want you to interact with me a number of ways. We've got the chat open on Spreaker right now, so feel free to poke your head on in there and say hello. You can also interact with me on Twitter at the RCWR Show. Like me, like my Facebook page over at Infinity One Productions. That's with an E, spell out one, Infinity One Productions. You know, we got a website that you can check out as well for some great original and fun content. All the information you need is in the synopsis for this very episode that you're checking out right now. So, good God Almighty, where do we start with this reaction show? I mean, shall we start with the ending there? I mean, I guess we can kind of like address the elephant in the room right there. I can't think of a better way to kick off the show, quite honestly, than to say Seth motherfucking Rollins. Seth motherfucking Rollins came back with a vengeance at this Extreme Rules event. Gone is the blonde streak in his hair that we were just, many of us that is, I know definitely I was somewhere on that list, very irritated with that blonde streak. But we saw Seth Rollins back in the flesh, looks better than ever, has a great physique, almost picked up a little bit of bulk since last we had saw him. Remember, last we saw him, kind of had a nice build, but he was pretty small. He kind of seemed like he was mainly doing a lot of cardio and all that, but he picked up some serious bulk, I must admit. Nothing like Triple H. What was that, 2001, 2002, when he returned from his first quad injury? Nothing ripped of that nature. Nothing like how when Alex Riley had returned. But he definitely looked pretty damn cut, even though he didn't take his shirt off. I tell you what. Overall, this Extreme Rules pay-per-view event was a little bit average, but you had a couple of key points, Seth Rollins definitely being one of those factors that overall made the event for sure worth checking out. Because I don't know how many of you all had this on your mind, but for me, one of my main thoughts, and I talked about this off and on the past couple of weeks, I definitely had talked about this when I was offering my booking ideas on how I would set up Extreme Rules, which I gotta say, other than I think maybe one or two areas, I did phenomenal with regards to this card tonight. I know I had a couple of you guys hit me up throughout social media. Lee, you did call that. Yeah, I did call that. We'll give you the details in just a couple of seconds. Let's go ahead. Let's jump right into it on that note. Of course, I am aware of probably the biggest piece of news that has come about Extreme Rules Sunday. Honestly, I did not expect for WWE to acknowledge the release, but in case those of you may not be aware of it, it looks as though WWE has granted the release of Cody Rhodes. Yes, WWE has granted the release of Cody Rhodes. Now, this may come as a little bit of a shock to you guys. I'm not sure how many of you all are actually following him throughout social media. I know for me, I'm following his Stardust account, and I'm also following his, I don't know if it's now a public account, but I remember when I had to submit a follow request because his private account on Twitter was private. You couldn't just follow him and read his tweets and all that. And it took just a couple of days, but I was approved and I was able to read some of the personal activity that was going on Cody Rhodes' Twitter page and all that. But leading up to this release that came about earlier today, Cody had took to Twitter and he basically said straight up, hey, I asked WWE if I could have my release as far as the details, why this is coming about. There's a lot I want to say, but I'm going to hold it off until a later time. I'll keep you guys posted on how the release goes. Now, his contract was supposed to expire sometime before the end of this year. Sometime, I would think, before the end of the summer. His contract was supposed to end. And so, I don't know how much of an effort WWE had tried to make and getting him to stick around with the organization, but they went on ahead, they pulled the trigger, they gave him his release. Now this comes after reports that him and his older brother Dustin, aka Goldust, were supposed to show up for some SmackDown tapings earlier this week, of which they did not show up. So now we kind of know a little bit like as far as what exactly was going on right there. And I was keeping you guys alert of everything that was coming about via our Facebook page, and we had got a decent amount of reactions from those of you. I know when we initially had shared the news, there were a lot of you all that were reached about that piece of news. And again, if you want to stay connected with me as far as social media goes, I'm usually Facebook. If I'm going to be breaking out any key pieces of news as far as like my reactions to it and all that, Facebook is definitely your best bet. But WWE, they released the typical WWE has come to terms on the release of Cody Rhodes as of May 22nd, 2016. WWE wishes Cody the very best in his future endeavors. Now, many of us were under the impression, well, give it just a matter of time. Maybe the Talk is Jericho podcast, the Stone Cold podcast, Jim Ross, the usual suspects, High Spots, RF Video. Give it a little bit of time. Maybe they'll reach out to Cody, secure interview, and we're going to find out all the nitty and the gritty. Well, before any of that could even come about, Cody would actually take to Twitter and he would put out a statement basically saying, my one and only statement on the matter, no podcast or tell-all nonsense. This is actually pretty short. It's a little lengthy, but I just want to blaze right through it because I know there's probably not a lot of you guys that are aware of what all had transpired here, but this is pretty much what he had to say. And it goes as follows, and I quote, "Setting foot in the dingy old Greensboro Coliseum this past Monday can only be described for me as just a whimsical moment of clarity. At this moment, most folks know that I have indeed asked for my release from World Wrestling Entertainment, but it's paramount in my mind for the fans of pro wrestling to have some answers and not be left with questions. A mini superlative can be used to describe my mentor in wrestling, but one I often forget about is fearless, and it's a trait I wish more of had been passed down my way." I'm reading it as it is, folks, so if it sounds a little bit off, it's not me. Trust me, it's not me. So there I was, standing in the very same locker room Ric Flair had dressed in before changing the wrestling / pay-per-view closed circuit at the time, Game Forever, and capturing the NWA title at Starrcade 83 of Flair for the Gold. It's sad that after once again being benched off TV, that my fate in said spot was instead to be relegated to watching a monitor advertising a returning star and kicking open my tummy gear bag to find an outfit I had long outgrown and a face paint kit. Both Triple H and Vince McMahon have given me many fun and challenging opportunities in my career, and I showed my gratitude by always pushing for the best segment I could create, the most interest I could generate. They gave me the chance to train on the job with some of the most brilliant minds in our world, gentlemen like Arn Anderson and Fit Finlay. I would do this job for free, but that didn't stop WWE from always compensating me in a generous manner. My goal in pro wrestling has always been to win the WWE Championship, the one accolade in the game my father never obtained, and for a decade I tried to convince both Vince and Triple H that I could be their star player, their varsity quarterback, if you will, but it seems we have reached the point where neither saw that in me. I sincerely appreciate Triple H's unflinching respect for my father, and now he has acted as a custodian of history in honoring him since his passing. He did not owe me that same respect he gave in Dream, but I thought I could earn it in time. One of my last discussions we had included him telling me WWE is a play and everybody has their role and needs to act in their best. All I can say to that is the best actors don't want lesser roles. In the past 6 months, I had pleaded with WWE Creative and both of my bosses to let me roll the dice once again and be Cody Rhodes. I pitched to every writer on staff like a door-to-door salesman on how and why and when. And believe me, there are many staff of those who sought to help me. Brian James, Nick, Foz, Jay Russo, Dave K, JBL, and Cole for letting me go wild on their YouTube show, and a few others, I'm sure. But for all that, both pull up part 2, both head writers of Raw and SmackDown, one pretending to be Brian Gerritz and the other too busy hitting on developmental divas, continue to not return my pitches or emails, and in face-to-face encounters try to big league me by pretending to be on their clearly powered off laptops, barely willing to listen to an idea I considered beneficial to more than one talent. What's that expression? Don't take no for an answer. What do you do when you get an what do you do when you don't get an answer at all? The fine print on this, it's pretty small. I try to blow it up as best as I can, but it's still rather small. So I apologize if I continue to fumble through this, folks, but hopefully you've been with me so far. Goes on to say, so there I was, having done everything I could possibly do for 10 years to make the most out of both large opportunities and even half-cocked ones, like paint up like your brother. Chicken shit into chicken salad became my specialty, and with those worthy opportunities afforded me, I can only hope I fully executed. I've made the walk down the ramp at multiple WrestleManias, and I have had a WrestleMania match canceled while I stood at the curtain moments before my music hit. Talk about a stinger right there, huh? I felt like I had a big... I felt like this is actually him that fucked up right here. I felt like I guess he's trying to say I felt like I had a bag of those brass rings, and when it came time for me to cash them in, I find I can't do so. Like I said Monday, because I felt that fearlessness in my blood, even if just for a fleeting moment, I realized that I don't need to sell myself to these two writers captaining a broken, unrecognizable system. Matter of fact, with the time I had put in and the body of work I presented, it should have been the other way around. I realized that blood is thicker than paint, that I know who I am and what I'm capable of. I'm not Dusty Rhodes. I'm Cody Rhodes. I'm a pro wrestler. I am proud of that. It's been never said to leave money on the table, but no money is worth being less than you are. Ask my wife. I don't even read the check breakdowns. This was never about the money. This was always about the moments, and I'll be damned if my father's legacy is Stardust or a series of sizzle reels for NXT. It's not my job to pick up his sword. It's my privilege. I will miss many of the soldiers in that locker room, some of who I earned their friendship. Guys like Cesaro, Zack Ryder, Tyler Breeze, Kevin Owens, Luke Harper, Kofi Kingston, Ty Dillinger, The Wasteland, and the NC. Keep that locker room clean and keep having a better match than you're supposed to. I do believe the cream rises and hard work prevails. My work just needs to be elsewhere. I want to thank both fans and critics of mine alike. There is no greater responsibility than having a fan who expects a level of entertainment from you, and there's nothing more motivating than those who buy a ticket yet find themselves lacking, considering the first few CAW years of my career. I love that. I love that creator wrestler reference there. Great. I like that. I always took the criticism as more of a request, and I made what adjustments I could for the overall product. Again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Almost 1 year ago, the biggest light in my sky was ripped away from me when I lost my father. It's time for me to try and seek that illumination, that glow that's still out there. This is not a goodbye. There's a whole world of film and television and the stage that I might find I have a knack for. Maybe I even already got an offer. As far as the future is concerned, though, I'm a wrestler, so that's what I'll do. Wrestle. I don't know about you guys, but some pretty solid words right there by Cody Rhodes. I'm not really going to spend too much more time on this because this is really all about Extreme Rules. But this was such a big piece of news that had went down today, coinciding with the Extreme Rules pay-per-view event. I would just be caught on fire if I did not talk about what had went down with Cody Rhodes. I'll definitely go a little bit more in depth on this on our Tuesday night edition of the RCWR Show, which you can catch this Tuesday night, 10 p.m. Eastern, live on Spreaker.com. And if you can't check it out live, all the links you need to check it out on demand on the downloads is in the episode description for this very episode you're checking out right now. But the one thing that I will say, just to really summarize this, and again, I'll go more in depth on Tuesday, but when I first read what Cody Rhodes said, the first thing that just jumped out at me was, you know what, man? You got to just follow your heart. You got to do whatever makes you happy. And I mean, I know there's a lot of us that's out there that have been in a similar position that Cody has been in. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be a wrestling position. You can just relate to this from the previous jobs that you've had over the years. I know I'm not the only one that can relate to this. I mean, I can recall many times where I've been in a position where I thought I had the right type of job, where I felt like I was being someone that was contributing a lot, that I was being a really good team player, that every single time I came in and I clocked to work, I didn't just put in 90% or 95%. I didn't even put in 100%. I tried to go 120%. I gave it my all. I always went above the call of duty. And I did that because, number one, when I'm there, I'm clocked in. It's my job. I'm being paid to do that. So my mentality was always giving the employer their money's worth. And in turn, I always had the belief, and this was bestowed upon me from my mom, my dad, my grandpa, my grandma, which was basically, you work hard, you stay diligent, you stay the course, good things will come to you in good time. I know there's a lot of you all that probably were brought up on those same values. But once in a while, especially in the workforce, you come across that employer where those rules that you learned growing up as a kid, it doesn't apply to that particular employer. You're being overlooked for other people, whether it be a race thing, a gender thing, just downright favoritism, or hey, this person called in a favor, so this is why they're getting the hookup. And it's just one of those type of situations where you have a choice. You either continue to eat it and smile, or you go, okay, you know what? I think I'm going to maybe test the waters and see what else is out there. I don't know about you guys, but me personally, I have left a job many of times really just kind of going, you know what? I got to follow my heart. I'm just not happy doing this anymore. You know, it doesn't make me as happy as it did when I first started doing this. Yeah, the money's really good. yeah, the money's good, but I gotta follow my heart. I gotta go elsewhere. And I think this is like the position that Cody is in right now. Who the hell can blame the man for being in this position that he's in? You look at all those years
that he was with the WWE, right? You look at all of those moments leading up to his exit where he had some bright spots, where it looked as though his career was promising, where it looked as though he was kind of going in that right direction. And let's be brutally honest here, when Dusty Rhodes was one of the head writers, correct me if I'm wrong, he was one of the head writers for SmackDown before he put all the attention helping out Triple H over with NXT and all. There was a good portion there in Cody Rhodes' early days in his career where his father was right there just kind of stringing him along, helping him, giving him keys to success and all that. You could tell when you look back on it that, oh yeah, that's got a little bit of Dusty's fingerprint trails on it and everything. And I've said it here numerous times, and I've always been consistent with it. I loved it when Cody Rhodes has started to break away from the whole legacy thing. I really didn't think that was going anywhere. I loved it when he did the whole dashing Cody Rhodes, and then he had the whole paper bag thing going on where he was putting paper bag over random fans in attendance. I thought that was just awesome. I don't know if maybe WWE Creative maybe took a page out of TNA's playbook with that, because I remember the beautiful people, Angelina Love and Velvet Sky, they would say that they were cleansing ugly faces, one face at a time or whatever, and they would put paper bags over their opponents and random fans in attendance and all that. So I don't know if maybe they kind of borrowed that and maybe it was like, let's see how Cody works with this or what. But that was definitely a fun moment that I had enjoyed. His time that he spent with Damian Sandow, and who could not forget that match, that Money in the Bank match where it looked as though Cody was going to win the briefcase. Can you guys remember? I mean, I still get goosebumps to this day just recalling that Money in the Bank pay-per-view match. And it looked as though Cody Rhodes was going to get that briefcase. I still remember how the fans were just up to their feet and they were screaming in unison like, oh my God, Cody is actually going to do this. And then Damian Sandow came, yanked that bad boy, and we were like, oh man, so freaking close, what the hell. And then I thought for sure when Cody and Goldust had got fired by the Authority, I thought for sure this was like gonna be a start finally of big things to happen for this young man's career. I had thought, okay, finally they're gonna pull the trigger, they're gonna go with him. How will they know unless they try? And I know there's a lot of you guys that always bring that argument up. You're like, well, how do they know this person is any good unless they give them the opportunity? If they don't present the opportunity, then what the hell? And it looked as though that opportunity was going to present itself, but somehow it just seemed like it fizzled. You can just look back and look at other fellow WWE superstars and pretty much see that same thing. So honestly, I'll say this in closing. Cody Rhodes, under the right circumstances, and if creative and booking, the support, if it was all really there for that man, just by my recollection and all the years that he has been in the WWE, if it was really behind him like that, he should have been at bare minimal, and I know you all will agree with me with this assessment, he should have been at least a 2-time WWE champion. At least a 2-time. That's all I'm going to say with regards to that. I'll have a lot more to say because I'm still just processing this, because it was like, wow, it came. Did I expect this? Yes and no, but leaning more towards no. But I definitely want to hear from you guys with regards to what all had came about with Cody Rhodes being released. So head on over to our website. You can leave a voicemail message over there. It doesn't cost you anything. Just takes a couple of seconds. Doesn't matter what type of device you're using. If you got a built-in mic, you can leave a voicemail message. Make your point 90 seconds or less. 90 seconds not enough. You can leave a second message if you like. Head on over to infinity1productions.com. That's with an E. Put in the actual number 1, infinity1productions.com. And you can definitely interact with me throughout social media and give me your thoughts about the situation. But we'll definitely follow up on this one Tuesday. I have a feeling we'll learn a lot more as time progresses. Let's talk about this Extreme Rules event that had came about. So, pre-show, not too bad. Less than 10 minutes. Probably one of the shortest matches of the entire card. We saw Baron Corbin defeat Dolph Ziggler. No disqualification match. Honestly, I was expecting for Baron Corbin to pick up the W. And the reason why I stressed that Baron Corbin needed to pick up the W for this particular matchup was because this was basically like your rubber match. Because remember, they went at it a couple of times on WWE main TV programming. So factor in the previous pay-per-view where Dolph Ziggler had won that, which has surprised a lot of you all out there, because a lot of you all had thought that, okay, Baron Corbin's first major pay-per-view as being part of the main roster, yeah, surely he's gonna just hit a home run out off the break. That did not happen, to say the least. So for me, looking at this particular matchup, just basically looking at this as a rubber band match, if you will, I definitely was like, Baron needs to pick up the W. It's really time for him to move on, and he needs to move on with a W from Ziggler. And I even put the question out there as far as, where do you have Baron go next? And I teased it off and on, but I went on record. I said, maybe you can have him lock it up with John Cena. Maybe you could have him lock it up with Apollo Crews. I definitely feel those could be the respected directions that it could go. Based off of what all had transpired tonight, I could even see maybe Cesaro kind of sliding in there to work with this young man. But hilarious finish to Baron Corbin versus Dolph Ziggler. I loved it. We had saw Baron Corbin. He was able to dodge the hell out of a super kick from Dolph Ziggler. Keep in mind, this was pretty much after Corbin had connected. What's he calling that move? The Deep Six or whatever? That's a hell of a finisher, by the way. His End of Days. And that, I really love those two. But the End of Days, I really love more. Because it's like, how can you kick out of that? It just looks so devastating. It just looks like you should not be able to kick out of that once he connects that to your face and all. But after Dolph Ziggler had missed his super kick, we just saw Baron Corbin say, I just don't give a fuck. And he just gave him a serious low blow to the groin. And that was pretty much it. Stick a fork in it. That match was done. Corbin connected with End of Days to pick up the 1-2-3 for that matchup. I thought that was a decent pre-show stopper. If it was me personally, I would have actually had that match moved to the actual card itself. But I mean, it was fine. For a kickoff, I didn't really have a problem with it. See, the reason why I'm having that match go to the main card is because I really wasn't that keen on the match that we had got on the actual pay-per-view card itself, consisting of Rusev taking on Kalisto. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in just a little bit. But to the actual pay-per-view card, we saw the clubs, Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows, defeat the Usos in a tornado tag team match. Honestly, this was not the match that I was expecting to kick off Extreme Rules. I thought for sure things were going to kick off with the Fatal 4-Way for the Intercontinental Championship. Or, if I could have had it my way, I would have opened it up with Dean Ambrose taking on Chris Jericho, that Asylum match. I would have kicked it off with that. So I was a little bit surprised that things had kicked off with the Club taking on the Usos. So we saw the Club. Again, they defeated the Usos. Pretty well-rounded match. It was okay. For me, I don't know how many of you all are feeling the same way, but I kind of feel as though the Club has a little bit of too much exposure right now. I don't know how many of you all would agree with that assessment. And when I say a little bit too much exposure, like, I remember when they made their debut and all that. I thought that was phenomenal. I thought that was a great way to make a debut and all that. But then, like, after they made their debut, they just kept being spammed in matches. And it was relatively matches with the same people. And I just would have preferred it if it would have just been a situation where, like, there could have been some type of mystique build-up of these guys and basically just hype up how much of a great success as a tag team they've been overseas in Japan mainly, and just kind of like do that nice big tease. I wish they could have just built up the mystique, and then that way it kind of feels a little bit more special when you get the opportunity to see these guys in a match. And honestly, I'm kind of getting to that point right now where it's like, okay, these guys have been spammed so much, I'm not getting as excited as I was the first go round that I had saw them. Not to mention, this hasn't really been exactly helping that all they've been doing is feuding with the Usos pretty much. I would really love to see them mix it up with a couple of other tag teams, but hey, that's just my wishful thinking. We probably disagree on that one. I'd love to have a healthy debate with you if you do disagree with me on that one. Rusev defeated Kalisto to become a two-time WWE United States champion. Hell of a way for that matchup to end too. Final moments, we had saw Kalisto looking for Del Sol, but Rusev denied him that. He was basically eventually able to counter it and do that classic camel clutch submission hold. Bent that poor young man like a pretzel, just like he did on Monday Night Raw. And it was interesting too with regards to the setup for this, because when Rusev was smelling blood initially in storyline, he just kept trying to go at the body, and the referee was like, hey, no, I gotta make sure this guy is okay. And like, the only way you could win this match, I think it was just a regular match. Now that I think about it, yeah, it was just a regular singles match for the United States title. And Rusev's mentality, and I love how they did it as far as the storyline goes, which, by the way, as far as the match itself goes, Kalisto had maybe one or two little hiccups. I won't say botches, but it was just a little bit of hiccups where I was kind of like, that really didn't connect that well. But the psychology of this match, I thought they really told a fantastic story. You know how in the previous SmackDown versus Raw games, I'm talking about the titles from like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, where basically you had Rey Mysterio, he was able to fucking body suplex at that Big Show or Andre the Giant, and you're like, what the fuck? How the hell was that even possible? Like, Rey Mysterio can't do that in real life, what the fuck? And this was something that, like, the passionate gamer was like complaining to THQ about for years, and they were like, you gotta fix this. There's no reason whatsoever Rey Mysterio should be able to body slam Andre the Giant, Big Show, Mark Henry. That's just a load of bullshit. It like defies gravity. It defies his height, his weight, and all this other. And so they finally went on ahead and they adjusted it in a way where if you are a certain height and you weigh a certain amount, this is what you will be able to do because you will be in this weight limit category. Enough said. And for me, I've seen some Kalisto matches where he's taken on opponents. Now, it hasn't happened as of late. Like with what he was doing with Ryback, those encounters were fine. Didn't have a problem with that. But like previously, it was kind of like it wasn't really believable for me. But I love the trend of whoever it is that's been in charge of booking Kalisto's matches with these big men that he's been presented to work with. I love just the ring psychology because you're going into this match and you're like, okay, how is this guy that's probably like 5'2", how is he going to be able to take out this guy that's probably 6'2", 6'3", maybe 6'4"? How is he going to be able to put the match in his favor on the offense? And the ring psychology, the story that was told for Rusev versus Kalisto, it was one that I enjoyed very thoroughly. That was actually one of my favorite matches of the night. That's how much I enjoyed that particular matchup. Of course, with Rusev now becoming the United States champion, one can only help but wonder if maybe, just maybe, Rusev is going to be holding on to this title just for about a week and 1 day until the Memorial Day edition of Monday Night Raw, where John Cena makes his return, maybe takes away that United States title, brings back the John Cena US Open Challenge, which honestly was one of my favorite highlights of Monday Night Raw because you just never knew who Cena was going to be facing. He was on a really great streak of matches. I think even the most anti-John Cena fan that's out there would agree when he was doing the US Open Challenge, he was having some pretty damn good matches. So I can only help but wonder if that's going to be the case, if Cena's going to get the belt off the break, or if maybe when Cena returns, it's just basically going to begin a program with Rusev that'll maybe culminate at Money in the Bank where Cena gets the title back. Just a little bit of wishful thinking right there. But honestly, for me, I would love to see Cena pick up where he left off when he was the US champion, because on top of Cena being in that position where he was the US champion, I loved how that title was basically being used in a way to try to help elevate the up and coming talent. I mean, that's really, when you think about what's going on with John Cena right now, I mean, make no mistake about it, and I don't want you guys going, is John Cena days in the main event picture over? I don't think it's over. I just think right now, and especially with Seth Rollins back, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but I feel that right now John Cena does not need to be in the main event picture, but he will get there once again. Now, it could come as early as SummerSlam. Folks, the big money match, and you have to think this way. Some of y'all may not like this, but you have to think this way. You have to think like WWE marketing. You have to think money. And WWE is probably looking at SummerSlam, and they're probably going, what's going to be our marquee matchup? What is going to bring the people to the table? What's going to sell out the SummerSlam event? And guys, John Cena, Roman Reigns, one-on-one, that's your money match whether you all want to admit it or not. But that's the mentality that you guys need to think. So don't be too surprised if Cena, Roman Reigns lock it up at SummerSlam. But I bet you what. I bet you what. I think Cena, Rusev. I would honestly be surprised if Cena gets the belt back on Memorial Day. I would be really surprised. I think he's going to get it back. I just don't know if it will happen that soon. I'd be pretty shocked if they did it that soon, where instead they should just do a nice little tease to it. But then again, they could have Cena take the belt from Rusev Memorial Day. Rusev demands a rematch, and Rusev pretty much like owned Cena like couple of years back when he was the United States champion. And remember the build-up that they did ultimately at Mania and all that, and then Cena won the US title. They could kind of like maybe do that again. That's if Cena wins the US title, but more on that as time goes by. I want to take this time out, thank those of you that's checking this out right now. You're checking out a special Sunday night edition of the RCWR Show as we're talking WWE Extreme Rules Fallout. Remember, follow me on Twitter at the RCWR Show. Boatload of other places. All the links you need is in this episode description. If you are checking us out live right now, I'd love to have you pop your head in our chat, say hello, interact with me throughout Twitter. Let me know how you had enjoyed the pay-per-view for tonight. Let's continue on and talk about some more matchups that came about. We saw New Day successfully retain their WWE Tag Team titles from the Vaudevillains, Aiden English and Simon Gotch. This was, for the most part, because again, this was another match that was like pretty short. I mean, when you just get through the entrances, it was pretty much a 3-minute match. And that for me, I was really kind of disappointed. Like that match, for sure, the club taking on the Usos, that was another one that was kind of like short once you just strip away the entrance time and all that. I wish a little bit more time would have been put, in particular, for sure, in the tag team match, because these guys can go. And I tell you what, the Vaudevillains, I have been a fan of the Vaudevillains since I've seen them in NXT. I can almost say I remember when they made their debut as the Vaudevillains, so to speak. That's how far back I go with NXT. So not really that many people that will be able to say they've been checking out NXT that long. So for me, I'm a big fan of the Vaudevillains, but once again, I can't help but say I'm really concerned about the Vaudevillains because the reaction from the crowd, it doesn't really seem like it's there. And I got to give a shout out to my buddy pal Titus Machiavelli. We had a nice little back and forth about crowds and reactions. Any reaction is better than no reaction. You get some type of a reaction. That's what the bosses want. And I'm a little bit concerned about the Vaudevillains. And for those of you that saw the pay-per-view tonight, you can definitely feel exactly where I'm coming from and why there's a little bit of concern. So I mean, if you are a fan of Vaudevillains and you're concerned whether or not they're going to be able to continue to stay on that main roster, I tell you this right now, if you got your WWE live event tickets and you're going to be going in the next couple of weeks and Vaudevillains are set to be advertised for that event, come out, you and your friends, represent, cheer them, boo them, give them some type of a reaction, because I just feel that, and I don't like saying this, but I just kind of feel as though maybe in less than 3 months, Vaudevillains could become a big joke. They could become as bad of a joke as the Ascension. And I don't like saying that because both of those guys, in-ring wise, they are very gifted. They're entertaining as hell. I get their gimmick, and I think that's the main reason why they aren't connecting well with the WWE fan base, the much younger fan base at that. But then even to an extent, you may have older fans, and by older, I mean like 30s and up or late 20s and up, that may look at this gimmick and just think that it's freaking stupid, because not everybody is a fan of wrestling from back in the early 1900s or late 1800s and all that. So that, the gimmick, is what I'm really concerned about, and if it will resonate well with the WWE fans in the long haul. So I think in about maybe 3 more months, maybe less than that, unless things turn around in a tremendous way, I mean, there really needs to be a serious 180. We could be seeing the final days of the Vaudevillains, and I hope that after this program with the Vaudevillains, New Day can get back to basics and take on Big Cass and Enzo Amore, because that right there, that was on fire. Speaking of which, we got to go back to the pre-show one more time where I saw Big Cass. He actually had interrupted the Dudley Boys, as Dudley Boys were cutting a promo talking about why they were now performing at Extreme Rules, and they basically said that New Jersey and the event itself was beneath them, that the new generation of wrestlers that's coming about pretty much couldn't hold their jock straps and all that, and that had made Big Cass come out, and he did pretty good. He actually had fought both of them, got the one up on him and rolled out of the ring, called him soft, and that was pretty much the end of it. Let's talk about that fatal 4-way match for the Intercontinental Championship. We had The Miz defending against Cesaro, Kevin Owens, and Sami Zayn. Boy, I tell you, and this is what led to me and Titus having a really nice back and forth discussion, which was about The Miz. And those of you that have been listening to the show for a long period of time know how much of a fan I have been of The Miz. I've gone on record time and time and time and time again, and I have said this guy, when it comes to talking, he is the best of the talkers that is out there. If you are trying to elevate somebody, you have them work with The Miz, and The Miz will sure enough do that right type of job, will do it justice, and he will succeed in getting that other person over. Put the microphone in his hand any day of the week, and you have a doctor that is at work. Truly one of the best. He takes his job seriously. I could tell he loves what he's doing. And he is one of those guys that, honestly, for me, I'm really surprised that with The Miz, he hasn't been put in a position where it's like, you know what? Miz can freaking go there. He don't need no freaking script. Give him his bullet points. Let him go out there. Let the shit just fly on the canvas. Wherever it lands, we'll just run with it. Because Miz is just that good. And don't believe me, just go check out the work that he did. If you have access to the WWE Network, check out the work that he did from this previous season of Tough Talk. Now it was basically the Tough Enough post show. Check out what he had did on there. I mean, he was so good on that show that you had a bunch of people, including myself, that was like, okay, fuck Tough Enough already. Let's get to Tough Talk, because we know Miz is going to be bringing it on there. Miz is like, he was why you watched Tough Talk. And Miz carried himself so well on that show that I don't know who it was that came up with the idea, let's move Miz from that hosting position to being one of the Tough Enough judges. But that thunder was a little bit lost in translation when they moved him to the judge's position. I'm sure there's a lot of you all that would definitely agree with that takeaway. But Miz has proven time and time and time and time again that if you give him the opportunity, he will run with it. And Miz is just one of those guys that I just can't help but go to think, as long as he's been with the WWE, and he's only been a WWE champion one time. And like I was telling Titus, Miz should have, at this point in 2016, at bare minimal, Miz should have been at least a 3-time WWE champion. At least. And again, same argument could have been made for Cody Rhodes, as I had mentioned earlier. So it's just one of those head-scratching moments right there where you can't help but kind of go, what the hell? Here's a guy, great utility player, impact player, does what he needs to do, whatever the company needs him to do this interview or need somebody for this crappy movie. I mean, he's always there. He's always being the team player. Work like that should be rewarded. And it's not like he's an old guy or anything. He is still a relatively young man. So don't quite understand that right there. All 4 participants for the Intercontinental Championship match, they brought it. This was definitely another match that I have thoroughly enjoyed. This was actually my match of the year candidate, for those of you that may be a little bit curious. And since I have been doing match of the year candidates since this year began, if you notice, Kevin Owens has basically been involved in a lot of these match of the year candidates, and this one was another one. It really seemed as though this could have been anybody's ball game. There were many opportunities where it looked as though Cesaro was going to be the Intercontinental Champion. There were many opportunities where it looked as though Sami Zayn was going to be the Intercontinental Champion. There were many moments where it looked as though Kevin Owens was going to be your new IC champion. But when all the dust settled and cleared, it would end up being The Miz to retain the IC title. He had a little bit of help though. Pretty much in the closing moments of this match, we had saw Sami Zayn, actually all 3 of these men, Sami Zayn, Owens, Cesaro, each one of them just kept like getting a one-up on the other person. And it looked as though it was just, oh, it's in the clear, it's right for the taking, go for the pin, go for the cover, 1, 2, only got a 2 count as someone else came right in, grabbed him by the foot, dragged him out. That actually had happened to Sami Zayn at one point, as if I'm not mistaken, I believe he had tried to pin Cesaro, and then Kevin Owens had dragged him by the foot, pulled him out of the ring. Sami Zayn just freaking snapped. He actually just started taking the fight to Kevin Owens. He like forgot all about focusing on getting that IC title. Meanwhile, Cesaro, he's pretty much out of it. Miz was able to slide on in there, basically picking up the sloppy seconds. 1, 2, 3. Miz, I did not even think it was humanly possible for him to come out of this, but somehow he managed to come out of it. Still, your Intercontinental Champion. And I don't know, I'm not really ready to jump out there just yet and say that maybe the powers that be in the WWE have newfound faith in The Miz. I'm not going to jump out there because this was just one night. I need to see how things transpire for the next several weeks. If Miz is still holding on to that Intercontinental title 2 months from now, yeah, maybe we can revisit it then. And maybe we can bring up the discussion on whether or not maybe Miz is possibly gonna get that opportunity, if you will, to be elevated into the main event scene. Because when I just think about the plateau of talent that's available right now and taking on a Roman Reigns for the WWE title, Miz would definitely be a good opponent we could slide in there, especially if it's a situation where you're trying to help elevate Roman Reigns' status even more. Just some wishful thinking right there. But great match. That was actually my match of the year candidate. Dean Ambrose, Chris Jericho, the Asylum match. And I'm not talking about Arkham Asylum. That's a Batman reference for you guys. Batman Arkham Asylum, the video game. Anyway, this match right here, I thought that this was a good match, but I felt the placement of this match was a tad bit off. Remember what I said earlier? I said if it would have been me and I would have been in charge of the ordering and how matches were presented throughout the night, I would have either had this kick off the actual pay-per-view, or I would have had the Fatal 4-Way for the Intercontinental title. Now, given where the placement ended up being for the Intercontinental title, I'm now leaning more towards the Asylum match maybe should have kicked off the actual Extreme Rules event. And I say that because the match was good, but it was a little bit too gimmicky. Now, some of you all may be like, but Lee, that's like the whole point of this match. It was an Asylum match. Like, there was all types of cool weapons that could have been used. So, don't understand what you're talking about. Well, what I mean by that is, you remember how back in the day, when you had your ladder matches and all that, it wasn't just about a series of, oh, that was a cool spot. It wasn't just a ladder match full of fun spots and then, oh, after all these series of spots, then we're going to crown a winner. No. There used to be a time where you had a ladder match, you had a relatively entertaining match because these opponents were doing something over here, so you had to kind of watch what they were doing, but then you had these other opponents that were over here and they were doing, so you kind of like had to keep your eyes on both because there was something really cool that was going on. It wasn't just full of spots fest as most of these gimmick matches are today. And with this particular match, this was more of a play up to the instruments that was inside of this Asylum match. The barbed wire, the nunchucks, the straitjacket, a red bucket that had contained a black bag, and inside the black bag was thumbtacks. Everything was used except for the freaking potted plant and one other item that I can't recall, but the potted plant wasn't even used. But I just felt it was an average match, but it was just a little bit too heavy on the gimmicks. I can't really explain it any more than that. You know, it's kind of like, if I were to use an analogy, here's a good analogy. I'll try to keep this clean as much as I can too, because I know we have female listeners that check out the show, so I gotta kind of keep it a little bit friendly to the female listeners. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of, you ask this girl out on a date and she's playing a little bit hard to get. You got to keep working at it, but you finally are able to get those digits. She says yes, and you take her out for that date. And one thing leads to another, and you're like, hey, you want to come on back to my place? And she's like, for what? Well, I can show you my record collection. Or, you're a fan of The Walking Dead, right? Yeah. Oh, well, I've got the entire blah, 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 blah figurines or statues or whatever. And that basically is the lure to get her to come back to your place or whatever. And, like, she comes back to your place and you're like, hey, can I get you something to drink? And she's like, yeah, sure. You hook her up with a drink. And you're talking about Walking Dead or whatever. One thing leads to another. Just when you think you're about to maybe tap those panties, something happens where she continues to, like, she knows what you're trying to do. She's well aware of the game. But she's making you work for it. She's continuing to tease you. Now, she could just go with the flow and y'all could just go all the way. Do a little R. Kelly 12 play. But She keeps teasing you. And for me, with this Asylum match, Ambrose, Jericho, I get it. They went into this match. They really wanted to just fuck each other up really bad. But once Jericho realized what he got himself into, he decided, you know what, I need to get the hell out of here because I'm facing this guy that is just... And see, here was the other problem that I had with this match, the psychology of this match. And it just really irked me out. Chris Jericho has been in I don't know how many Hell in a Cell matches. He has been in I don't know how many Elimination Chamber matches, right? And I'm talking about all of these matches where he was a heel for the most part. And here he is in this match where basically the only things that's hanging up over this Asylum steel cage structure is a fucking red bucket, a barbed wire bat, a straitjacket, a potted plant, a mop, a kendo stick, and Jericho is scared? I just had a hard time processing that in my head, and I get how it was supposed to go down for this match. Basically, it's like this is an Asylum match. Dean Ambrose is crazy. There's no telling what he will do. There's no telling what he will do if he gets a hold of these weapons. But once again, here is the problem that WWE has with Dean Ambrose, and Dean Ambrose getting lost in translation as a result. He gets called the lunatic fringe. You get the comparisons to the loose cannon, Brian Pillman, which, by the way, I like how JBL said, oh, today is the 54th birthday of Brian Pillman. If he was still with us today, he'd be 54 today. And I look at Brian Pillman, I think about him, and I see Dean Ambrose. Yes, I see traces. I see little tiny elements of the loose cannon in Dean Ambrose. I do. I genuinely do. But the two pale in comparison. There's just really no comparing. And Dean Ambrose, he's not a lunatic. He is not crazy. He is not... He's none of those things. And so, for me, it was really hard to process this match, kind of going, Dean Ambrose is the crazy, sadistic one here. He can do any and everything that's possible. That got lost, as well as really kicking back and just watching Jericho in this and watching him to react the way that he react. It was just too heavy on teasing the fans' intelligence is where I'm getting at. Now, if you know your wrestling like that and you've been watching it for a long time, then you can agree with that assessment that I made. For a lot of you guys, you're like, yeah, now that you bring that up, they did kind of tease with my intellect there a little bit. They kind of insulted me a little bit. What the hell? To a younger fan, they probably would have thought this match was like 10 stars or whatever like that. But it was just too much of a tease, too heavy on the gimmicks and all that. But I will give both of these men credit. They went into this match. They did all they could to entertain the masses. I'll definitely give them that. Charlotte took on... by the way, in case you all didn't pick that up, Dean Ambrose did win his match against Chris Jericho, by the way. It pretty much ended with Dean Ambrose doing like somewhat of a modified spine buster, as there were thumbtacks laid out on the ring canvas, and Dean Ambrose was able to just wham! He was able to do a nice spine buster, if you will, to Chris Jericho that way. Thumbtacks entered his back, Chris Jericho's back, that is, and Dean Ambrose followed it up with Dirty Deeds, picked up the 1-2-3 that way. Charlotte, Natalya, submission match for the WWE's women's title. Remember, if Ric Flair had interfered in this match in any type of way, because he was barred from ringside, if he interfered in this match, just by making an appearance, just by sticking his head out from the gorilla position and going, woo! Charlotte would lose her title. Another short match. I wish this one would have been a little bit longer, at least almost close to 15. I would have preferred. But this was definitely a better encounter than what we had got at Payback last month. I enjoyed this much more. I enjoyed this much more than their previous encounters, since they've been locking it up on main WWE programming. Really looked as though Natty was possibly going to become the women's champion. But, and I don't know, man, sometimes when I offer booking ideas, I am like spot on, and it's creepy in a way where, and I know there's a couple of, and I won't mention any names, but there genuinely are a couple of people that I'm aware of that work in the WWE that do check out the show. So I don't know if maybe somehow some of the things that I say is maybe going to certain people or what. But I said on Tuesday, and you don't believe me, you can go back, you can check it out yourself. Or just pay attention to the comments throughout social media and the chat and all that. But when I was offering booking ideas for this particular match, I said if it was me, I would have somebody come out dressed up like Ric Flair, have the robe, have the mask, wig, all that. And basically, you weren't really sure if they were there to help Charlotte or if they were there to help Natty. And I also had stressed that as far as SummerSlam goes, again, big marquee matchups, your money-making matchups. Charlotte taking on Sasha Banks at SummerSlam for the title. It's got a nice ring to it. So I had proposed an idea where maybe you could have a Ric Flair imposter get involved in this match, basically cost Natty the title, and then it's a running gag for a couple of weeks because like everybody's trying to figure out the mystery of this Ric Flair imposter. Because it's obvious, like, you could have made the argument, like, okay, well, based on the build, is it really Ric Flair? Was that him? Has he been toning up? What has he been doing? Or what? But you could have done it like that, and then eventually, what I had proposed was maybe it could have been a situation where maybe you could have revealed who it was, but then maybe you could have had another Ric Flair imposter show up. Once again, Charlotte thinks she's going to get the help, but it backfires, and then maybe it's revealed that it's Sasha Banks up under there, but then it leaves you to wonder, well, who was up under there originally? And of course, that mystery would be revealed in due time itself, but I called it. Probably the only equation that I didn't quite get in there was the fact that Dana Brooke was our Ric Flair imposter for the night. Talk about momentum swing in the favor of Charlotte, because Natty at one point, she had the sharpshooter on, looked like maybe she was going to win the women's title. You hear the Ric Flair music, we see the Ric Flair imposter come out, Natty gets distracted, we see this Ric Flair imposter take off the wig and all that. Turns out it's Dana Brooke. Dana Brooke climbs up on top of the ring apron. Why the referee is like just a different story for another time, but Natty's totally distracted. Charlotte able to capitalize on that to retain her title. Charlotte, Dana Brooke, Ric Flair, all celebrating. You know, I can't help but wonder if maybe, just maybe, Emma was supposed to be in that position. And big shout out to Emma, who has a ruptured disc in her back, if I'm not mistaken. She's going to be out for several months. Ouch. Main event match of the night. Let's go there. It's our last one. Extreme Rules match for the WWE World Heavyweight title. Roman Reigns taking on the phenomenal one, AJ Styles. I actually had enjoyed this encounter quite a bit. My God, AJ Styles. What can I say about AJ Styles? Number one, I did not think that AJ Styles would go into this match cleanly for a second straight pay-per-view, lose to Roman Reigns. I mean, let's just address that elephant in the room. I mean, come on. How many of you all honestly thought AJ Styles was going to walk away with the WWE World Heavyweight title? Let me give you guys a reality check if you did think that. First of all, shout out if you thought that way, but let's be realistic. Roman Reigns, now a 3-time WWE champion. The build-up that he had, the program that he had with Triple H, everything culminating in at WrestleMania, Triple H dropping the title to Roman Reigns on the biggest stage of them all. You do all that build-up, and then to basically have Roman Reigns drop that belt 2 months later negates the whole purpose of that build-up from the get-go. I know we got a lot of passionate and hardcore AJ Styles fans that are out there. I am definitely a AJ Styles fan. Been a fan of his since his days in TNA. And I watched a big bulk of his career in TNA wrestling for a lot of years. So for me, when he broke away from TNA, way before he even came to the WWE, I continued to show the man support. I continued to check him out at wherever promotions he was wrestling for and all that. Continued to be a fan of his through and through. Heard he finally made it to the WWE. I said, hey, great, let's see what he's able to do. Let's see how he's able to do it. And AJ has just, I tell you what, since he's come to the WWE, he's really been able to hold his own on the main roster. And I'm sure within each day that passes, each week that passes, he is convincing the upper management in WWE that, you know what, these TNA guys, they may have some sucky people in management, but I tell you what, these TNA guys, these men and women, they are very talented. They're holding their own, and I think with AJ Styles, Samoa Joe doing their thing, they're really proving that, hey, these TNA guys, there's a lot that they can offer if they're presented the opportunity. But Roman Reigns, AJ Styles, phenomenal matchup, no pun intended. Thoroughly enjoyed it. It was what you would expect would go down. Usos would interfere. The club members would interfere, beating the crap out of the other opponent, and then that tag team trying to help out their buddy and getting the 1, 2, 3. Kept going like that for a hot minute. We saw AJ Styles, and it sucks hearing the reports that were put out there that AJ Styles physically isn't doing that good, that he's a bit banged up from some nagging injuries that he had sustained in the previous weeks leading up to now. I don't know how much of that was true or not. But I tell you what, if it was true, it got magnified even more because he went through 2 announcers' tables. He went through the ring apron. He went through the guard wall barrier. He went through the Extreme Rules panel table. What else did he go through? He took a couple of spears. He took a freaking power bomb. I mean, this guy was just, when you just look up the word abuse with a capital A, AJ's face was just right there, and he's just smiling, giving you the thumbs up. That would be him in that dictionary looking up that word. I mean, he took a freaking beating. Very resilient. He had that never give up type of attitude. And I just loved it how for a hot second it looked as though AJ Styles was about to become the WWE champion until one of the Usos had grabbed him by the leg, yanked him, You talk about getting some serious heat. The Usos, they had already got like mixed reactions from the crowd earlier in the night. Now they just got full-blown boos from the crowd at this point. And AJ just snapped. He went belligerent. He just grabbed a steel chair and he just kept going to the body of both Usos, went to the body of Roman Reigns. And storyline continuity wise, this is, now maybe I'm nitpicking, but for me, I had a serious problem with AJ Styles going, okay, I've got this steel chair and I just went to the body of Roman Reigns. Now I'm gonna drop that steel chair and I'm gonna go outside of the ring to the side apron. I'm gonna bounce off the ropes and I'm gonna try to connect his face with a flying forearm, knowing very well at the previous pay-per-view AJ Styles tried to do that same maneuver. If I'm not mistaken, he tried to do that same maneuver and Roman Reigns caught him with a spear out of nowhere and was able to get the 1, the 2, the 3. And history just repeated itself again. It almost reminds me of this movie that me and my girl like to talk about from time to time. It's a classic movie with Gary Cooper, I think is the actor's name. It's called Toast of the Town. And Gary Cooper basically plays this guy that likes hustling people or whatever. It's a black and white movie. And you get this one scene where it's him and 2 other guys. They're all in on it. And one guy goes, hey, get your soap here. Get your soap right here. There could be a dime. There could be a quarter in here. Get yourself some money. Only cost you 10 cents and you might win $10. And one person was like, hey, gee there, mister, I think that gold there be fake. And the other guy goes, who's in on it, he goes, I want one. And the other guy goes, well, gee willikers, ain't I dumb? And I just couldn't help but look at AJ and just be like, AJ, from a storyline continuity standpoint, AJ should have this well scouted by now. That really was not the finish that I was expecting for that. Furthermore, I'm looking at that padded vest that Roman Reigns has, and I'm just kind of saying, when is somebody like that's really serious about going to the body of Roman Reigns, when is somebody going to rip that vest off, and when are they going to go to his body? And I mean, those steel shots, those steel chair shots that Roman Reigns was taking to the body, I'm sure he was nice and cushioned up, to a certain degree. But it was just one of those endings where you were like, well, that was a little bit anticlimactic. It was a little bit similar to what we just saw over 2 weeks ago. What the hell? But, of course, the biggest buzz was after the match was over. Roman Reigns is celebrating. We see the WWE little logo pop up and all that, and it's like, oh, well, that was fun. All of a sudden, and I was reading the fans' facial reactions. I'm like, something's about to go down. I saw it like 3 seconds before it went down. Roman Reigns gets attacked by Seth Rollins, the architect. The architect of the Shield, Seth Rollins, attacks him, hits him with the pedigree, standing over him, holds up that WWE title high. Remember, this is a title that this young man did not lose. He had to relinquish it because of an injury that he had sustained, which basically had put him out of commission for almost a year. So, probably one of the biggest pieces of news to come about this Extreme Rules event tonight. We got Seth Rollins, who is back, looks better than ever, looks like he's trying to pick up right where he had left off before. And honestly, it's going to make Monday Night Raw very interesting. A lot of love and support for Seth Rollins. I mean, that was just so unanimous. And, honestly, I've never had a problem with Seth Rollins as an in-ring competitor, as a performer. Never had a problem with him. I did think his gimmick the last go round, he wasn't really built up properly as a good, strong heel champion. Of all the champions that I could recall in recent WWE memory, he had the promising ingredients of the opportunist like Edge, but the direction, and again, he's only executing what the writers and creative want him to go out there and do, but he was really coming off like a chicken shit of a champion. And I tell you what, just first impressions, I know it's still a little bit too early to say right now, but just the way that he was able to just go out there, bring it to Roman, honestly, I'm getting that change of a new Seth Rollins, that this is a Seth Rollins that's just gonna take it to your face. This is how it is. This is how it's gonna be. Don't like it? I'll see you in the ring. And it's going to be very interesting to see how Roman and Seth click. It's going to be very interesting to see how they click in their program. But now the $1 million question, what do you do with AJ Styles now? I mean, where does AJ Styles go next? Does he maybe try to seek some type of retribution on the loss that he suffered at tonight's pay-per-view by taking out his frustrations on the Usos? Does he maybe hook up with the club to do a serious number on them? I mean, that really wouldn't surprise me if that's the route AJ decides he wants to go. Does AJ maybe try to jockey for that Intercontinental title? I mean, there's a very interesting idea in itself right there, as far as AJ Styles and The Miz having a program. And then just think, if you have AJ get the title, you could eventually see a program with AJ, Kevin Owens. You could see AJ Cesaro. You could see AJ Sami Zayn, of which eventually you could have AJ drop the title to Sami Zayn. If I was booking it, if I'm going to have Sami Zayn become an IC champion, ultimately that's how I would pretty much set it up. So a lot of interesting twists and turns that's going to be coming about. Also, another thing to consider, Money in the Bank is going to be happening in June. So if AJ Styles doesn't go that route, does AJ Styles maybe go the route of, well, look, I'm not done. I will be a WWE champion, and I want to try to get in on this Money in the Bank. So do you maybe have AJ Styles be entered in Money in the Bank? Remember, whoever wins that briefcase for an entire year, they have a respected shot of cashing it in anytime, any place, to try to become the WWE champion. So of the two that I just mentioned, I mean, honestly, I could see AJ trying to extract revenge to some degree on the Usos. But then at the same time, I could also see AJ trying to get in on that Money in the Bank ladder match. If I were just to give wishful thinking right now as far as who the Money in the Bank participants will be, well, that depends. Is it going to be a 6-man or is it going to be an 8-man? Because if it's going to be a 6-man, then I'm looking at AJ Styles, Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens. That's 3 right there. Do you maybe put Cesaro in there? Or do you let him continue to chase after Miz? That's an interesting dynamic right there. AJ Styles, I don't know. That's a tricky one. AJ Styles, Sami Zayn, they definitely need to be in the Money in the Bank. I'm not so sure about Seth being in there because he never lost the title, so he should be able to make a beeline, I would think. You definitely need to put some new blood in there as well. So do you maybe put Apollo Crews in there as well? So I don't know. I'm going to marinate on that one. But I'll tell you what, way before Raw even comes on Monday night, I'll definitely put my list out there of who I think will probably be your participants for that Money in the Bank match. And it should be interesting to see how that all plays out. Which, by the way, doesn't look like there's going to be any basketball Monday night. So I will definitely be interacting with you all for Raw Monday night. So that should be fun in itself, because I know I haven't really interacted with you guys past couple of weeks with the NBA playoffs and all. So I think we did pretty good. I'm just poking my head in the chat here, seeing what you all have to say with regards to some of the matches that had came about. Kingsley, so shocked to see Seth back, expecting him to be back shortly after Cena. Yeah, I was kind of expecting that as well. What do I think of WWE making finishers less meaningful? It's like every match has someone kicking out of a finisher. For example, AJ hit 2 Styles clashes. While it was a good near fall, it made the move look weak. Not at all. Not at all. I looked at it more from the standpoint of both of those men came out looking very resilient, very determined. They came at each other with everything that they had, and honestly, to see AJ Styles lose another match to Roman Reigns cleanly in the ring, I thought for sure there was going to be some type of controversy. I thought for sure that maybe Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson would turn on AJ, but I don't know if maybe writers, creative kind of felt that was a little bit too predictable, and maybe that's why they didn't want to go that route, or maybe it was a little bit too soon, because I still kind of feel like that could possibly happen. Not really sure, but that was I didn't pick that vibe up at all. Probably the only two moves that AJ did not do in that match that is part of his arsenal. He didn't do the phenomenal elbow. He wasn't successful with that one. And he didn't do the, what's he calling that submission move? The calf killer? Whatever that damn ankle hold move he's doing. He didn't do that one. So kind of makes you wonder, like, had the match went on for another 5 minutes, if he would have had that one. But yeah, I tell you what, that damn spear, I'm trying to think. I think Roman Reigns did 2 spears to AJ. I tell you what, Roman did more damage to AJ than AJ did to Roman. And I like how it was kind of justified by having Carl and Doc come out. And it was like, oh yeah, well, here you go. They're trying to even it up on Roman here. But now when you just look at how much damage storyline wise an individual took, AJ definitely took a ass beating tonight. Definitely did. See what else you guys are talking about here. Zargon, I can see WWE trying to make Reigns, AJ, and Rollins a triple threat. Calf Crusher. Yeah, I knew I had that name right. It might be a triple threat. It possibly could be a triple threat. We shall wait and see, man. We shall wait and see. Alright, so that is pretty much going to do it for tonight. I want to take this time out to thank the many of you that had tuned in for tonight's WWE Extreme Rules after show, as this episode was brought to you in part by our good friends over at Free Stream. Remember, if you are looking to save a bundle of money by ditching your cable or satellite provider and pay a big fat zero. Head on over to Freestream. Learn more at cutyourcable.biz. That's www.cutyourcable.biz. Really appreciate them sponsoring this episode of the RCWR Show for you guys. Next up, we'll be coming at you on Tuesday night, May 24th, 10 p.m. Eastern, live on Spreaker.com. We will, of course, talk about the WWE Raw Fallout. I'll give some Extreme Rules afterthoughts. We'll probably have a little bit more information on Cody Rhodes, headlines. You know how we do it on Tuesday, so make sure you join us on there. Once again, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Facebook. Like this episode, check out the previous episode, or all episodes that you might have missed. We actually did a really great interview with former WWE SmackDown commentator, NXT color commentator, Rich Brennan, aka Rich Bocchini. I recommend you all check that out. We interacted with him for almost about 40 minutes, and it was very insightful. You just couldn't help but come away saying, that Rich guy, pretty classy dude. So check that out on the downloads and on demand. Appreciate everybody that was represented tonight, checking this show out live. Make sure you click on that heart/like button. Give it a like/heartsy favorite there. And that's going to do it. Wishing all of y'all to be safe. Be kind to one another. I'll see you next go around. Everybody take care.